Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. This was supposed to be a live broadcast on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, I'm unable to go live on LinkedIn. So we are instead going live now on YouTube. So it doesn't matter which channel we are on. It does matter, but still, the idea was to share the content, and I will cross-post the link of this session, the recording of this session on YouTube to the LinkedIn event section, so that people who land up there are also able to follow or access the content on YouTube directly. So with that, let's get into the session. Cool. So, a quick introduction about me and what I do. My name is Mukesh Gupta, and I'm an author of 3 books. Your Startup Mentor, which was my first book, Thrive, which is all about how can you thrive in an environment where you're surrounded by smart machines and intelligent algorithms. And the last one that I released in October this year is Being Happy. The next one that I've just finished, or almost finished writing, and is what we're going to talk about today, is around selling to large-scale organizations. So before we go into the content itself, maybe someone might ask, okay, what credentials do I have in order to talk about selling to large-scale organizations? So I've been in some form or factor selling for the last 25 years. I have a blog on which I've written a lot about sales and selling and what I think sales executives get wrong, specifically when trying to sell to large organizations. We'll see why it is a bit different than selling otherwise. So the last decade and a half, I've spent working alongside CIOs, which is Chief Information Officers, trying to understand what they do and how they do it, what are some of the challenges that they face, and what mistakes do salespeople do when they are trying to sell to this demographic. While my experience is primarily along the CIO, CDO, which is Chief Digital Officer persona, but in my interactions with CHROs, supply chain heads, or for that matter, any other CXO persona, what we're going to talk about stands true, because I've already had a conversation with people in those roles and shared this content with them, and they did agree that yes, this is something that they think would help them in going through the purchase process with their vendors. So without further ado, let's get into the content itself. So one of the things that many salespeople, when I interact with them, tell me is that it is getting more difficult, it is getting longer, it is getting more intense in terms of selling to large enterprises. It's getting slower, it's getting more difficult. Why? Does selling as we know doesn't work anymore? I think so. I think we have gone past an era and we are now in the transition period where one era finishes and the other era starts. And therefore, everything is in a flux. Everything that seemed to work in the past, in the previous era, probably may not work in the era that we are getting into. And what you're experiencing right now is that moment of flux or transition where we are not very clear about what's happening. Is it because is it because the world is changing, and changing really fast. We are talking about autonomous cars. We're talking about, if you're following the trend recently, ChatGPT, which is able to, apart from a lot of other things, it can also tell you, show you the comparison between two given products. So for example, if you go to ChatGPT 3 and put in a question saying, what are the differences and similarities between, let's say, a Tesla and a BMW electric car? It gives you the entire set of differentiation and what are similar and what is different. So if you are able to get that level of detail and information through just asking a question to an artificial intelligent chatbot, what role does the sales executive play there? If you think it is just about cars or for consumer goods, you are in for surprise. Let's assume that you go in ChatGPT 3 and say, okay, what is the difference between, let's say, Google Cloud Platform vis-a-vis Microsoft Azure Platform, or for that matter, SAP Cloud Platform, or for that matter, AWS. And even if you go to a specific service, which are similar in nature, that each one of these platform provider provides, and ask ChatGPT 3 to compare it, it does the comparison. It may not have an opinion of itself, but it does provide the facts and figures, which it can actually learn from scouring the internet based on its data set, right? So the world is changing really fast, and we are in the transition period. But is that it? We are also entering an era where there are a lot of cobots, as they call it, which is robots which will work with us. Plus, selling is neither a science nor an art. So there is an element of a combination of science and art. There is certain things which we can control, which is a lot like science. And there are certain things which we cannot control, which is a lot like art. And just like this robot, there are times when we land on both our feet, and there are times when we fall on our faces. So, which means that we need to understand when to apply the science of selling and when to apply or bring in the art of selling, right? Or is it nothing to do with us, but everything to do with how organizations buy, right? I think with all of the changes that are happening right now, the way large enterprises buy has changed significantly. It's become slower, it's become longer, and the amount of touch points that they have with the external vendor organization or sales organization is shrinking because of all the technology that is now available for them to kind of compare and find out more about the product and the problem that they're trying to solve and things like that. And this is not something that I'm saying. In 2019, Gartner released this B2B buying journey. They did a big survey, I think, if I'm not wrong, for about 2,000 plus people who had just bought something in the last quarter. And they asked them to kind of share what was the process like. And this is the result of the survey. 5 phases. But if you look at the number of steps that are involved in a buying journey, is humongous. It's a miracle that they end up buying something at all, which is why status quo is the biggest enemy for any sales executive. Fighting the status quo is super, super critical, super, super difficult. This is why, right? So they talk about the buying decisions, successful buying decisions, has these 6 phases, so to say. And it requires all of this to be completed. Starts from problem identification, exploring what the potential solutions could be, based on everything that they've done, which is the research, which is problem identification and solution exploration, building a set of requirements, as to know what exactly do they want. Once they have the requirements nailed down, then they look at solution providers. That is when they actually start talking to sales executives. And throughout this phase, all these four phases, right? Validation and consensus creation is happening at every single one of these stages. It is super important to have this consensus because most buying decisions nowadays, especially in large corporates, is not a one person signing off on something. Even if they have the authority and the budget to do so, they will not do that. They're not doing that because they have understood that unilaterally deciding something doesn't necessarily help in the long term in terms of the adoption of the solution itself. So they want to ensure that the buy-in for the solution that they're trying to adopt in order to solve the problem that they've identified has buy-in right from the start, right from the beginning, so that at a later point in time, change management becomes that much more easier, that much more simpler, therefore increasing the probability of success. So what does that mean? That means is, when I first kind of thought through this, and there was a light bulb moment for me, because that meant that selling is no longer about sales or pitching or getting someone to say yes. Selling is now all about leading your prospects through a journey. Whether you like it or not, if you are in sales, selling to large corporates, you are in the business of leading them. The entire concept of always be closing, not working anymore. There is a time for you to close. But that time comes much later in the process than earlier. You have to lead your prospects through the journey, through the four phases and the two parallel phases that Gartner talks about in their report. Incidentally, this report came out after I had proposed a sales framework a few years back. So we'll talk about the sales framework, but before we go in there, we need to understand that if we really want to do well in sales, we need to have at least some sort of a sales process going. We need to know exactly what we are doing. A good model, a good sales process, or a good sales framework, which tells you or locates you where you are in a given journey, which tells you what you need to do in that journey, in that phase of the journey, in order to move to the next phase, and what you need to do in there in order to move to the next phase, is like rocket fuel. It allows you to propel yourself that much more longer and that much more higher when it comes to sales success. So I did create a sales framework, and let's talk about the sales framework now. The framework is called the simple or simpler framework for selling to large enterprises. It's very simple, but not so easy. So it's got 7 steps in the process, and it's designed in such a way that it can become a flywheel for the organizations as we go along. So first step in the process is about getting the attention of your prospect. And how do you capture the attention? By surprising them with an insight. We'll talk about each one of these phases in a lot more detail as we go along. Suffice to know that this is a framework that you can actually use in your sales process right now. So it goes like this: surprise your prospect with an insight. You should make them go, oh, okay, I didn't know about that, or I didn't think about it like that. Tell me more. That's the response we're going after. Then inspire them with a vision. What could be? What's the potential future that they are missing out on? It is not enough to show them the future or the vision. It is important that they have enough energy and motivation to do something about it. Go after the vision that you are proposing. It is not enough for them to do it by themselves or with someone else. They need to do it with you. That's the whole point of this entire exercise. So position yourself, then your solution or product, then your organization, then your ecosystem. So position. Once you've done all of that, then you need to be able to lead them through the entire process, the six-step process that we spoke about, and all the different micro processes that need to happen within those six phases that Gartner spoke about. Right? You need to be able to tell them which stakeholders you need to involve. You need to tell them what exactly will be the potential questions that their stakeholders may raise and how best they can answer. So you need to create a salesperson out of the prospect who can actually sell for you within their organization. You need to help them help you. And also within your own organization, because while buying has changed or significantly, so has sales. There are so many different steps that you need to do in the entire sales process, right from ensuring that you get the right pre-sales team involved, you get the right content being shared with them, you have the right contract being sent out, you have the negotiations done, your commercials teams, your product teams, all of them, right? So you need to lead that process internally as well, both within your organization as well as within your customer's organization. Last but not the least, you need to ensure that the vision that you painted in the second step, you are right there with them until they realize that vision. You need to do whatever it takes to ensure that the vision that you had painted is actually realized. And then, of course, you need to repeat whatever is necessary. So, for example, when you are in a third stage and you realize that the motivation to act is not there or not strong enough, which means that the vision was not powerful enough. So you go back to that step and repeat it. And once you've done the entire thing, once you've executed the vision and realized the vision, start the process again. Surprise them with the next insight. What happens is, this is like a positive spiral. The more you do this process, the faster it gets and the easier it gets. Because after every iteration, the trust that the customer has on you goes up because you have helped them realize their vision. You have helped them look good in their organization. You have helped them achieve the result that they wanted to achieve, right? So let's go a little bit deeper in each one of the steps now. So the first step, getting the attention of your prospect, breaking through the clutter and busyness of the prospects. We need to be able to break their pattern. We need to create an element of surprise in them that makes them go, stop, and think, what just happened? The reaction that you're going for is moving back. Sometimes they may say, tell it to me again. What do you mean by that? Or tell me more. That's the reaction that we are going for. Surprised. Now the question is, where does the surprising insight come from? So it's very easy for me to just say, surprise them. Surprise for the sake of surprise doesn't work. Surprise, which is relevant to their business or their day-to-day work, or to them as individual, or to their organization, or to their team, is what is important. So where do we get these insights from? So there are two lenses that we can look at it from. So the topmost or the easiest. So if you actually look at it, The biggest circle is the easiest to get these insights from, but they're also very common. So very difficult to sort through and really surprise someone. As you go deeper and deeper, it's difficult to get those insights, but the insights that you get are truly surprising. The deeper you go in this model and try to get surprises from or insights from, the insightful the insight is going to be and the more surprising the insight is going to be, right? So let's look at each one of these in just a few steps. So the reality, what do you mean by reality? So have you observed something which is happening in their organization, in their teams, which they are too close to, so they are not able to see? Do you talk to your customers and find out what are some of the challenges that they are facing with your customer and how they interact with them? It can be customers, it can be partners, it can be suppliers, it can be employees, it can be different team members who interact with the team that you work with. Basically, you look at their reality and see what they're missing or could potentially miss. How do you find out? Yeah. So for example, someone says that, I've told this 100 times to this company, they don't listen. What is left unsaid in your conversation? That could be another one, right? So this entire thing about reality, and from that reality, you gain insights about their business, about their job, about their role, about their effectiveness. The next level, slightly deeper, is ideas. So you know what challenges that your customer or prospect is facing. What are their goals, objectives? And can you come up with ideas? Not about your product. We're not talking about your product here yet. We're talking about genuine ideas, which doesn't matter which product you're going to use, but ideas that can actually make their lives easier, simpler, make their problems go away, or introduce new problems in their lives so that they are becoming aware of the problems that are existing, but they were unaware of before. So all of that comes from an ideas point of view. Then frames. So typically, every organization thinks in a particular way, behaves in a particular way. So I can give you an example. So there are organizations which are like Amazon, which they say they are customer obsessed. Zappos was customer obsessed. Then there are organizations like Apple, which are product obsessed. Then there are organizations which are sales obsessed. There are organizations that are manufacturing obsessed. There are organizations that are cost obsessed. So that's a frame in which they are looking at everything around them. So if you can actually change the frame or break the frame for them, insights will come from there. So for example, a particular organization, let's say, is sales focused. So if you bring in a marketing frame into the conversation, and if you are able to show how by ensuring that the marketing gets the due recognition and the budgets, it can improve the efficiency and the velocity of your sales. That's breaking frames. And then, of course, mental models. Mental models are how we think that the world behaves. So if you really understand your business or your customer's business, if you really understand your prospect's world, you will know what their mental models are. And if you can find a way to break the mental model or to change the mental model without getting absurd, without getting nonsensical, that's probably the most powerful insight that you'll get. That will stop people in their tracks and stop and take notice of you and what you just said. So that's the first lens. So the second lens, you can look at all of this from the angle of the individual that you're talking to, what their motivations are, what their reality is, what their ideas are, what is the frame in which they look at things at, what are their mental models. Or you can look at it from a team perspective. So how does this team's reality looks like? How does this team think about ideas? How does this team, which frame does this team think through? What are their mental models, combined joint mental models? Same way, you can look at it at an organizational level. You can look at it from an industry level. Again, the more deeper we go, the more significant the insight becomes. We don't need 25 insights. No. Just need one, which makes people go, oh, tell me more. I never thought of it that way. You can also, if you work for a large corporate, I'm pretty sure that there are organizations or teams within your organization whose task it is to get these insights from. Talk to them. There might be a competitive intelligence team in your organization. There could be a market research team within your organization. Or for that matter, there are market research firms that are existing in the world whose job, the only thing that they are doing is to gain these insights. These could come from industry conferences, not just from your industry conference, but adjacent industry conference, your suppliers industry conference, your vendors industry conference, your customers industry conference, your partners industry conference. Can come from anywhere. Once you have the attention of the executive, of the person that you want the attention of, it is super important that you make the most out of it. And how do you make the most out of it? Is by giving them or showing them a vision that is compelling at all levels. Compelling for the individual, compelling for the team that they are part of, compelling for the organization, and is the right thing for them to do. As they say, right? If you don't know where you want to go, any road will get you there. Or no road will get you there. Sales or selling is the dance between being comfortable and uncomfortable, making your prospects comfortable and uncomfortable, and comfortable and uncomfortable. The first step was to get them to become comfortable with you, open to dance. Second step, making them uncomfortable. Showing them why where they are is not the right place for them to be. Showing them what is possible. Where should they be going towards? What is the potential for them to achieve? The vision needs to be really, how do I put it? It needs to be powerful, inspiring, and it should be contrasting. It should contrast what is versus what could be. Martin Luther King's dream, I have a dream speech, is probably the best example of that. He talks about what is and what could be. What is, what could be. What is, what could be. What is, what could be. This contrast is what creates the uncomfortableness. It is super important that the end state of the vision that you're painting is super clear, vivid. Add as much detail to it, add emotions to it, add smell to it, add sound to it, add pictures to it. I don't know how many of you have seen this movie, Jerry Maguire. This is the scene where Tom Cruise, who plays Jerry Maguire, talks about how or what his vision is for a sports management agency, which is to put the athlete at the center of everything else. Taking care of your athlete. Clear vision. What would the end state look like? Once you've done that, once you've painted what the end state looks like, you've created enough uncomfortableness for them to stay where they are, then comes the third stage, which is the motivation to act. As they say, motivation, status quo is the biggest enemy of any salesperson. Losing a deal to a competitor is okay. I mean, you win some, you lose some. But losing something to a status quo is unforgivable because you had it and then you lost it. And not to a competitor, but to status quo. You've done a disservice to your customer or client by not having gotten them to make a decision, to having made a choice. Again, there is a pivotal moment in the movie Matrix where Neo, which is Keanu Reeves, has to decide whether he's in or whether he's out. He's been provided with two choices, right? Which option do you want to choose? But you have to choose one. Staying where you are or going after the vision that you have so vividly painted with your prospect. That's a vision that they need to be wanting to go towards. The moment you nail that, it becomes that much more easier for them to choose. And it's just not enough to provide options. You also need to provide a map saying that here you are, this is where you are going to go, and this is how you're going to do it. And not stop there, but also provide a navigator. Who is going to lead you along the path? Who's going to be there with you at every step of your way? Who's going to be your Krishna to your Arjuna? Right? Who will lead you through the maze and help you come out on the other side successful, having achieved the vision. And who is that? That's you. You need to position yourself as the navigator, as the guide, who will help them through the entire journey, who will help them realize the vision that you have painted for them. You are the hero who is going to help your prospect's organization. At the same time, you need to ensure that your prospect who is working with you comes out as the hero within their organization. He comes out like Neo for the humans in the movie Matrix. Right? The savior. The person who actually took them to where they wanted to go. There is a way you position. So as I spoke earlier as well, so you position yourself as well, for yourself first and foremost. It is your personal credential, it is your personal commitment to make sure that you will help your customer or prospect realize the vision that you've both painted together. Once you've done that, once you have the trust from your customer, then you talk about how your product or solution can actually solve or help you get there. That's the vehicle through which you will reach your destination. Then you position your organization as to know why your organization is the best suited to help them in the entire journey. This is like the infrastructure that supports, or the fuel that actually supports the journey, right? And then not last but not the least, if required for your product or for your service, position the entire ecosystem, your partner ecosystem, your vendor ecosystem, your spare parts ecosystem, whatever is the ecosystem that you're looking at, you position that as well. Never forget to position that. It is this combination of you, your commitment, your product, and how it solves the problems that the prospect has, or how it creates opportunities for them. The organization, which will be serve as the fuel, and then the ecosystem, which probably is the map of it. Right? So position yourself first, product second, organization third, ecosystem last. But do all four of them. Last but not the least, you need to lead them through the buying process. Not just that, it is your responsibility to be the coach, to help your prospect navigate their internal world. Who are the relevant stakeholders? What could potential objections be? How do you address them? Whom should you involve? At what stage? By virtue of your organization having sold this so many different times, you would already know which stakeholders are important to be aligned early, which stakeholders need to be brought in at what phase, in order to have no surprises at the end. What are some of the things that can actually make it easier for your contact to position yourself and your organization and your product within their organization? What are some of the things that you can teach them? What are some of the things that you can coach them? What are some of the collaterals that you can share with them? Do everything that helps them help you. Be the coach. Build advocates in your prospect organization, not just one. And by the way, this entire process, you need to be doing this with multiple stakeholders within the organization, because no decision is made by one person, right? Multiple stakeholders, you need to know who these stakeholders are. And you convert them into advocates and enable them to play on your behalf. Help them help you. Last but not the least, you need to execute the vision. What do I mean by that? Once you've signed the contract, that is not where the sales process ends. Sales process ends, or the deal is closed, when the vision is realized. Not at the signing of the contract, but at the celebration of having realized the project vision. This is where most sales executives trip. Most sales executives get the sign on the contract, hand it over to their customer service team, and move on. Sometimes their organizations assign them different accounts. Sometimes they move organizations. Sometimes something else happens, but they drop the ball. As long as you're in the same organization, please do not drop the ball. Please stay connected with the customer. Have regular check-ins with them. Have regular check-ins with your team, which is doing the implementation, or your partner's team, which is doing the implementation. Find out if there are any red flags. And find out who can address them before they become more than red flags. Right? And as I said, repeat whatever is necessary. Buying is not a linear process. There are back and forth happening. So be present enough. This is the art part of the sales process. Be present enough to realize which stage you are in and which stage you need to go to. Sometimes it's moving forward, sometimes it's moving backward. Sometimes it is staying where you are for a little more time because you've not nailed what you need to do in that particular phase of the sales cycle. If I have to map what Gartner spoke about, it so happens that it also maps pretty well with the framework that I created. The problem identification is between surprising someone with an insight and inspiring them with a vision, because that's where the problem identification is. So the vision itself and what is the goal that you're going for is the solution exploration. The motivation to act is all about requirement building. And between that and positioning yourself as the preferred partner to go with is supplier selection. And of course, the entire leading the process and is all about consensus creation and validation through the stages. So you need to hold yourself accountable for what you can deliver for your organization, what you can deliver for yourself, what you can deliver for your customers. You have the potential to be the best salesperson in the world, each one of you. All it needs is a little bit of discipline to follow the science of the framework and a little bit of intuition to know which phase you are in and where you need to go next. So that's all about frameworks and the process and why it is important for you to kind of have a framework and a process in place and what this process is all about. There are times when people, when I presented this to people, they've said that, how is it different in challenger sales? Or for that matter, any other sales model. Maybe it is, maybe it is not. I do not want to argue on that. All I'm saying is that's the sales framework. This is another sales framework. If there are similarities, so be it. If challenger sales work for you, for all means, go ahead and use challenger sales methodology. If you have any other sales methodology that works for you, feel free to go ahead, use it. Use what works for you. If you don't have one right now, try this. Maybe it works for you. If it does, continue to use it. If it doesn't, that's okay. Find something else, but do have a framework. That's the science part of selling. It is important that you have a sales framework or a sales model that you're following because it locates you in terms of where you are in the process and what you need to do in that particular phase of the project. And that is important. That allows your intuition to come to play. It amplifies it, right? So now let's move into the next phase of the presentation itself, which is all about tips and tricks, which could potentially add more juice to the sales process itself, right? So let's talk about tips and tricks. One of the things that almost all sales organizations want to do is big deals. What is celebrated in sales organizations is multi-million-dollar deal, 3-year contract with X amount of dollars, X million dollars, with 10 different products or services. In the long term, that's probably not the right model to have, or not the right kind of deal to go through with your customers. I'll tell you why. Number one, it takes too long to close such deals. Number two, the cost of such deals is very, very high because in terms of the number of people involved in closing the deal, the amount of discount that you have to do in order to close the deal, the amount of energy and focus that you spent there, which you could have also used elsewhere, is another lost opportunity. What instead, just think about it. Instead, you pick a customer, do a small deal with them, go through the entire process, surprise them with an insight, inspire them with a vision, show them how it is possible for them to do it, position yourself to do it, lead them through the process, execute the vision, and give them the value that you promised or the vision that they promised at the start of the process. Next time, it becomes easier. So next time, go for a slightly bigger deal, go for a slightly bigger reach. The next time, and once you have done that, next time it becomes that much more easier for you because you've built up trust, you've built up social capital, not just for yourself, but also for your internal stakeholder. Now, they can trust you more as long as their organization trusts them more. The next cycle, faster, bigger. Next cycle, even more faster, even more bigger. And that is how you can actually make every account that you deal with into bigger accounts. Instead of doing multi-million-dollar deals in one account or two accounts in a region, you can do many, many more deals, smaller deals, faster deals. They are much more predictable. They are much more, so your sales leaders will appreciate that as well. And at the same time, the more you do it, the better you get at the process itself. The better you get in understanding intuitively where you are in the process and what needs to be done in that particular process. You get better at showing how your prospects can actually navigate through the entire buying process. What that does, that makes you better for the next time. Not only is the process faster, not only the trust is more, but you are better as well. So all of this is a multiplying effect. So land, expand. Slowly, first, and then fast. Second tip is always engage both the rational mind and the emotional mind of your prospect. Sometimes it is important, not sometimes, I think always it is important to show ROI, to show numbers, to show logos or reference customers. All of that is rational. It is equally important to also show the emotional part of it. Your emotional commitment. What emotions are your customers going to experience? Tell them that you're going to be around. Emotionally also pitch them that, you don't have to worry about your emotional safety as well. You're safe with us. However you want to address it. But make sure that you're able to address both the rational side as well as the emotional side. Always know your what, your why, what, how. Why are you doing this? If the why is for you to make more money, probably not the right why. The why has to be to help your customers do better, be better, have better, or do better. The moment you are able to keep that in mind, and if that is the why that drives you, it comes through in your conversation with your customers. They will trust you. And believe me, that is the most difficult commodity to earn. Getting money is easy. Making money is easy. Getting trust is not so easy. Then what are you doing? What exactly are you doing? What role can you play in the entire journey? Does the entire journey require you to partner with someone else? Who are those partners? Are you aligned with them? And how are you going to do this? Do you know where you are? Do you have a sales framework? Do you have what it takes? Do you know what steps are involved? Do you know where to find the right person? Do you know how to find the right person? Do you know how to influence them? So you need to know your why, what, and how. Are you using your references well? So references need not be just about closed deals or someone actually having realized the vision that you laid out with them for. References can also be about you. If you have someone who can vouch for you, the reference you should use. If someone can tell you that I trust Mukesh or I trust XYZ, that he will do whatever is right for you, that is a bigger reference that you can leverage to actually ask. Because a lot of times buyers, while they want to have big names or big brands behind them, but they always buy the sales guy. Once the sales guy changes and a new sales guy comes, and if he's not able to establish the rapport or the trust, the sales from that account goes down. Ask yourself, have you seen this happen? Have you seen this happen with your customers? Have you seen this happen with your peers, customers? Right? So references multiple phases. You can use references for yourself. You can use references for your products. You can use references for your organization. You can use references for your ecosystem. And it is not necessary that you should only use successful references. There are times when you may not have closed the deal, but in the process have built up a beautiful rapport with someone. It's okay for you to get them to talk to your prospect and say that while we did not go ahead with the project for XYZ reason, I trust Mukesh to do what is right by you. So just trust him and do whatever he tells you to do. Brilliant reference, right? Last but not the least, it's also part of why you are here today. Always be learning. Machines and algorithms, once they start learning, they'll never stop. In my opinion, neither should you. As I said at the start of the session today, ChatGPT 3 and other subsequent iterations of the AI large language model algorithms will be able to do a lot of things that today requires a salesperson. Comparison between products, feature functionality comparison, whether a particular product can do X, Y, or Z or not, references. All of these can be done by the AI itself. Customers can get their answers without actually having to talk or touch base with any vendor salesperson. So what's the value that you are bringing in? Learn about your organization. Learn about yourself, how you operate. Learn about your product and services that you're selling. Learn about your customers' organization. Learn about your customers' business. Learn about their customers' business. Learn about financial literacy. Learn about your adjacent industries. Learn about your industry, the trends in your industry. Learn about what's happening from a technology point of view. Always be learning. With that, I come to the end of the session today. My name is Mukesh Gupta. I hope that you found something useful from this session. If you really want to have a conversation with me, please feel free to drop a note to me, drop a message to me. I can, if you want me to work with you to put together a process for your organization. If as an individual salesperson, you want to work with me to figure out what you can do better, please let me know. I can do one-on-one coaching for you. If you want to invite me to do a presentation for your sales team, more than happy to do so. Please do reach out to me. Last but not the least, if you want me to come and talk to your leaders, please feel free to do so. Contact me, and I'll more than happy to come talk to your sales leaders. That, thank you. I wish you a very, very successful 2023. I hope you all go to your president's circle or whatever it is called in your own organization. And may all your customers succeed in whatever they are trying to achieve with you. Thank you. Take care.